Today's video is going to cover information and science behind two very popular, I hate to call them fad diets, but I will call them fad diets, the ketogenic diet and the paleo diet. Before I go into this, though, I've been getting a lot of questions from patients about whether or not these diets are right for them. Before I go into this, I want to make a very loud and clear disclaimer that as a dietitian, I often do not ever recommend one sweeping type of diet to any given person because every single body and every patient is different and requires different nutritional needs and macronutrient and caloric needs. No one size fits all is out there. I promise you that. That is why personalized medicine and nutrition is growing in popularity and efficacy. So use this video as a professional source of information to get all of your research and data before you decide to move forward with a particular diet. That said, let's start with the keto diet. The ketogenic diet, the history behind the ketogenic diet is actually for folks with epilepsy. It was discovered as a means for helping to alleviate the symptoms of seizures for people with epilepsy. The ketogenic diet is super popular right now because of its efficiency at helping people to lose body fat. So I'm going to talk really quickly about what that means. When we have glucose in our system, and glucose is primarily from foods that are rich in carbohydrates, so breads and cereals, starchy vegetables, all of those contain glucose. That is our body's preferred form of energy. And as long as glucose is in our body system, we will utilize that first and foremost. So if you are trying to lose weight, oftentimes you may do a diet and notice that you lose weight for a certain period of time, then it comes back on, or maybe you didn't actually lose any body fat. The ketogenic diet is slightly more effective at helping people to lose actual body fat because you are actually burning your fat as fuel. So let's go into the science just really quickly. When glucose is out of our system, so if we're no longer using glucose, our body is forced to change our energy mechanics to burn other sources of fuel to make sure that our body can keep working. And this is actually something that was utilized back in the day when starvation was fairly common for humans, when we didn't know when our next food supply was going to come, so our body had to adapt to long periods of starvation. So when we have run out of glucose, and oftentimes one really quick way to get there is to eliminate carbohydrates from your diet, as in the keto diet. Your body will start creating ketone bodies, and ketone bodies are actually what are created when you start to break down your body fat as fuel. The reason this is actually really cool, and the reason this is effective for patients with epilepsy, for instance, is because ketone bodies can actually bypass the blood-brain barrier. So even in starvation, that means that our brain will still be able to utilize fuel, and we need our brain and we need our central nervous system to actually continue to function even if we don't have that easy source of glucose available. So ketone bodies bypass the blood-brain barrier, which makes it easy for our brain to continue to have fuel. And also, as a result, in modern day, for people who are interested in losing body fat, you will then be using your excess fat reserves as fuel. So let's talk about the pros of the ketogenic diet really quickly. We just mentioned one. It does take a varying amount of time depending on your age and weight and activity level to actually enter into a ketogenic state, ketosis, otherwise known as ketosis. So, but it could range anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, depending on how strict you are with your carbohydrate intake. Once you have reached a ketogenic state, however, you are burning fat from that moment forward so long as you maintain ketosis. So One of the pros for many people following a keto diet is that they are actually burning their body fat fairly quickly. Not to mention, because the macronutrient breakdown of the diet for those following a ketogenic diet is very high in fats. Fats are a much longer molecule, so our bodies take a lot longer to break it down, which means you stay fuller for longer periods of time. So a lot of people really enjoy the fact that they don't feel that hungry when they're following a ketogenic diet. And because carbohydrates, which if you remember from watching my other videos, sugar is a form of carbohydrate. Because they're not eating carbohydrates and therefore not eating sugar, their sugar cravings also reduce. Those are three of the main pros to following a ketogenic diet. But let's talk and not underestimate the cons of a ketogenic diet. The cons of the ketogenic diet, there are a few. The very first one is that generally speaking, people do not educate themselves well on these diets, and the ketogenic diet is one of those diets that people generally follow in an unhealthy way, which can result in a variety of nutritional deficiencies. So the very first one is the fact that there are any time that we eliminate an entire food group, and there are three macronutrients. We have proteins, carbohydrates, and fat. If you completely eliminate one of those three macronutrients, it doesn't matter which one, you are going to lose weight. Think about that for a minute. You could eliminate proteins and only eat carbohydrates and fats, and you will lose weight. Same with any of the other ones. But in the ketogenic diet, because we need to be burning fat as fuel, fat is the predominant macronutrient. We've eliminated almost entirely the carbohydrate group, and you can have some proteins. A lot of patients, especially people who are really wanting to follow this strictly, feel like fats and proteins are one and the same, and that if they eat a lot of protein, that is okay. It's not, especially if eating too much animal proteins causes a lot of acidity and inflammation in our body. And some people, even if they are eating the proper amounts, proportions of protein to fats, they're still eating too many types of saturated and trans fats, which is not the good types of fat that can lead to a lot of health problems down the line, especially with our heart and internal digestive organs. Most notably, our gallbladder, kidney, and pancreas take the biggest hit when we have too high a protein and fat intake. And also, it is not to be underestimated how important it is to include vegetables in a ketogenic diet. A lot of people think that all vegetables contain carbohydrates, so therefore they shouldn't eat them. Vegetables and some low glycemic fruits, including berries, are really important to include in the ketogenic diet because they provide fiber. If we are not getting fiber in our diet, our digestive system takes a big hit, and our microbiome takes a big hit. If you want to listen to my microbiome discussions, tune into my other videos. All of these are big issues with the ketogenic diet that shouldn't be underestimated, which is why personalized nutrition plans are especially important. If you have any questions, I'm here for you. Ping me, DM me. But in terms of people who should not be doing the ketogenic diet, or should be especially careful, I should say, about pursuing a ketogenic diet, include anybody with gallbladder issues, with kidney issues, and anybody also with thyroid issues. And that's a lot of us females, because the thyroid is one of those master regulators of our hormones, and females do require some amounts of carbohydrates in order to maintain regular hormonal balance. So all of these things need to be questioned. You shouldn't just ever willy-nilly go into a diet, just because it's a fad or popular at the time. If you have questions about the ketogenic diet, please let me know. I'm going to move really quickly to the paleo diet. The paleo diet and the ketogenic diet are similar only in one respect, and that is the fact that people who follow a strict paleo diet are also reducing quite significantly their carbohydrate intake, but they're different in a lot of ways, and I much prefer the paleo diet as a template for people, instead of having it be just a very strict diet. I love the paleo diet being a template for kind of modulating it to your own unique needs. The paleo diet, the history behind the paleo diet, we have a lot of chronic health conditions in the 21st century that we did not have in many of our past centuries where our ancestors and cavemen ancestors lived. So a lot of people thought, well, maybe our digestive systems have not progressed and evolved in a way that can tolerate our modern diets that are very high in sugar and processed foods. So the paleo diet takes into account all of the foods and food groups that our caveman ancestors ate and focus primarily on those foods. So generally speaking, the paleo diet eliminates a lot of carbs, primarily from processed foods and refined sugars. The diet also eliminates highly inflammatory foods, including dairy and gluten, obviously, because gluten is found in a lot of processed foods and carbohydrate sources. And it does emphasize, the paleo diet emphasizes a lot of plant-based foods, including nuts and seeds, all the vegetables, including those that are starchy, like potatoes or sweet potatoes, for instance. And it also includes some lean meats, although it doesn't emphasize a lot of necessarily too many lean meats, if that makes sense. So the paleo diet is definitely more along the lines of a healthy diet that once again can be used as a template to kind of modulate for your own needs. Anytime we can reduce processed foods and refined sugars, there is a million of scientific articles that point to the benefits of reducing those processed and refined sugars, and also all of the benefit to eating more plant-based foods, vegetables, nuts and seeds, even some lean proteins and fish are all allowed on the paleo diet. And if you, once again, if you plan your meals well, if you color your plates well, if you have a well-rounded macronutrient profile with the paleo diet, there are a lot of ways to do this one very healthfully, and it's a lot more sustainable because you can have some grains and carbohydrates, very few. It's about 30% of our diet versus a normal diet is far well and above 60%. So it does reduce it, but you can have some. So I like the paleo diet a lot better as a general guideline for people to follow a healthful diet. But don't forget the paleo diet. Our ancestors did a lot more exercise than we did. So the paleo diet also emphasizes a lot of exercise. Don't underestimate that part of it, which again is part of a healthy diet and lifestyle anyways. So the paleo diet is a great one to follow. If you have any questions about this one, don't hesitate to let me know. Once again, just to remind you guys, there is no quick fix to finding your healthy lifestyle and what works specifically for your unique needs and body type. There's no quick fix. There's no one size fits all. So we do have to take some pieces, and sometimes it's a matter of trial and error, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Being really in tune with your body is one of the first steps to figuring out what works for your system and what doesn't. And this is my bread and butter, you guys. Reach out to me. I'm happy to schedule an initial consult with you guys to talk about your unique nutritional needs. I'm here to help you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. I'll see you guys soon.